I needed to not let anyone stop me. And then even if no one's helping me, I needed to go and find out how can I get to where I'm trying to go to. So like you have this singular conception of this is me and and anything that deviates from that is just dissociated from. It's just a mental load that's unnecessary until you realize that like there can't be such a thing as normal because everyone has their own individual perceptions and ideas and beliefs. And veganism almost did kill me.
So welcome to the BU podcast. We're joined today by, well, am I calling you by your government name or your artist name? We're joined by Innovance.
Yeah.
So he's a music producer from Brum, amongst other things.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning because something that's been a common theme lately with people I've been talking to is inner child.
Inner child.
Everyone's got beef with the inner child and they're trying to make peace with the inner child and kind of create a safe environment for the inner child. So like, let's rewind and say, so what things would you say to your 18-year-old self that you think will benefit his growth?
Oh, my 18-year-old self, that's hard to say because like it'll be explaining so much about things that I didn't understand then and things that confused me about kind of other people and what it is they're doing. So I guess like for a long time, when you're growing up, everyone's like, you need to know yourself. And I'm there like, what does that mean? Like, I can't find myself. Like, what's this thing? Why is everyone so confident about who they are and what they do and re-te-te? So like, I've spent a long time trying to find this thing. And then I was like, wait, this thing doesn't exist. I'm just running around in circles. And if I knew that back then, I wouldn't have spent all that time trying to find this stuff because like you're going to end up in one of two places or one of a few places. You either realize these things don't exist or you end up creating it or you end up engaging with how would I put it? With like an idea or a conception of who you want to be or who you think you are or who other people have told you to be. And the way you engage with those things ends up being like, well, it determines a lot of, how would I put it? It ends up being like, if you engage with it in a certain way, it can create a lot of mental weight or confusion. Especially like if it ends up putting you in a negative place with your own self-conception and it leads to kind of places of non-self-acceptance or self-rejection because I am this and I don't like, you're not supposed to be that and I don't accept that. And like now you're rejecting yourself because of these things which aren't really there. But
These things being
these ideas of self.
So, okay, so...
Or what you're supposed to know about yourself, or... Because I guess I could put it in another way in that, like, if you think about what we're told about kind of like how the brain functions and neuroplasticity and like the creation of new neural pathways and stuff, like if that's what's all going on, then basically you're constantly changing. So a lot of these ideas of self end up being static. So like you have this singular conception of this is me and and anything that deviates from that is just dissociated from, and that creates its own issues. But I don't know if that makes it any more easy to understand, but yeah.
So now that you're a grown-ass man, so to say, do you know yourself then in that case? Or is this it's just something that's not tangible? Or plausible, rather.
All right, so I subscribe to like this idea of no self, there is no self. Like basically the self is, we could describe it as a tool of coherence. So if you think about your body, like all the cells it's been said that all the cells in your body are replaced every 7 years. So like where is the self within all that thing, all every cell's replaced. So where is the self? But if the self is just an idea or a construct, then it can exist across all iterations of your body from childhood to you die in it. So yeah, there is no self. But then I guess another way I'd describe it is if you want to think of the self, then the self is dynamic because of the same underlying reasons of you're always constantly changing. If you encounter new information, ideally you should be adjusting to that information, and that should lead to further changes. Even if you stubbornly try to hold to beliefs and ideals and you're always changing, you're always in motion. It's dynamic. It's not a singular static thing. So in terms of asking, do I know myself? I'm how would I put it? I kind of just operate from an awareness of what's happening now and trying to understand what's happened before, and not necessarily trying to move towards an ideal in the future, because so much there's so many things that I thought, it's this way, and then eventually it's I enjoy doing this, and then no, I don't like doing that. I can only operate within that awareness of what's happening, rather than just sticking to something because this is me and this is my identity and this is myself and so as close as I can get to knowing myself is being aware of what's going on as best as I can in the current moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think with a lot of us, we perhaps, like you say, it's this construct that allows us to coherently understand our existence. What would for the audio listeners, he's made a face like, what?
I don't think it helps you to understand your existence per se. It's just that's how people try and use it, but again, you chasing ghosts and chasing these ideals and ideas. It's more just allows kind of it allows things to make sense across different states of and just from moment to moment. But
so your 18-year-old self, the most important thing he could know is to disregard this quest for finding yourself and figuring yourself out, and just go with the flow kind of thing, go with emotion and just be.
Maybe, but given I hope I would have been able to pick that up. If I could explain that to myself, I hope I'd be able to understand it without again having to go through this trek and process of all right, I'm trying to find myself, I'm trying to do this, and it's because I guess more than that, it'd be all these people don't know what they're talking about. They're all chasing ghosts, and they're chasing other people's madness, because you've landed on this rock and someone's told you this is what it is, and you've got this and you've got that, and this is how the brain works, and and it's if you stop and looked at things, you realize that's not what's going on.
So you when I brought up the 18-year-old self, you did say, I thought it was going for inner child. So
but it's still the same answer, because if you've said inner child, I'll be that's nonsense as well, man. I guess basically, because of how the brain works, we can create all these things in it. So you can create all these constructs, and you're basically creating all these different selves. So if you these are frameworks and perceptions through which you can view yourself, whatever that means. And through those frameworks, then people say this is how you deal with this is how you deal with that. But you're just conforming to these frameworks, beliefs, and ideas, rather than these are things that are present within you. Because you run into plenty of people, it's there's no inner child shit to resolve. There's no inner child there. But again, these are just societally accepted ideas, and no one's really saying like, yo, wait, maybe this doesn't make sense because XYZ. But yeah.
Other than you. So still sticking to that age bracket, like when we met, you had a nickname.
Which one? I have many.
Ankle breaker.
Oh yeah, I think it was AB, but yeah.
Yeah, ankle, but AB because of your ankle breaker. So you're the balling Don, so to say. So I guess, was playing basketball a dream of yours when you were younger, or?
Yeah. I think basketball came like the closest to something that I rooted my identity in. Well, probably that, and like my intelligence, but yeah, so it was something that I'd dreamed of doing, but that also led to like when I lost it, when I got injured, and when it didn't happen, that also had a lot of kind of how would you call it? You know what? It was a lot of loss. And probably like a bit of like as close as I came to identity issues as well. Of like, oh, well, if I'm not doing that, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know.
So your identity was tied to this sport, this passion of yours. And then you say, was it that you got injured that it didn't happen for you?
Loads of reasons. Like I didn't know what I needed to do. I didn't chase it hard enough. And again, that goes back to not knowing what I needed to do. Like, so yeah, like, I guess that's another thing. Like, I didn't know what it took to get to wherever I wanted to go. And like, those things took a long time to realize that, all right, at that point, I needed to be doing this. And like, I needed to not let anyone stop me. And then even if no one's helping me, I needed to go and find out how can I get to where I'm trying to go to. And I didn't have those realizations or that knowledge at that time. It was probably from a younger age, to be fair, because like I started getting chronic injuries at like 15, 16. And that really affected me, to be fair. But
so I know like there's a few people you'd been playing with when you were younger that made it pro. So were they doing anything different to have been able to take that extra step that you weren't able to do? Because I'm guessing the talent there wouldn't been like a large disparity in talent. Was it just something they were doing different?
I don't know. Like, I don't know what anyone else was doing for one. I know like I didn't have I don't know how to describe it. Like, I didn't really have good relationships with coaches and stuff like that. Like, I was very introverted, so I was insular, I guess, and I don't know how, you know what, that was the thing that just confused me throughout my whole childhood. I didn't know how other people were viewing me or perceiving me. So like that made it difficult to navigate things, and like my own kind of introvertedness and other things that were going on with me is just like, I guess it's kind of like the idea of you don't ask, you don't get it. Like I wasn't asking, and I don't know.
So relationships, building relationships. I guess it applies to anything in life, anything you're pursuing. Whether you're starting a business, you can't do it without relationships. Whether you're pursuing sports, fashion, or whatever it might be, you need relationships, connections.
Yeah.
So do you think it was simply a facet of introversion that you weren't developing these relationships, or because I'm sure other introverts are still able to do that. Is it just introversion or?
Again, like, I don't know, man, because there were, I'd like, these are things that just confused me for years. I don't know why those relationships didn't develop. I do know from my own side, like, I wasn't putting in effort or trying to seek them out or that kind of thing. But on the other side, like, I guess, like, I always thought of it where, you know, when you're growing up, people will be like, join a sports team. It helps you develop this skill, that skill, those skills. It gives you like camaraderie, brothership. I never had those things in teams, really. Like, I'd always be there, like, I'm supposed to be developing these things, and I haven't really got any of them from it. And yeah, it's not really a question I can answer.
By the sounds of it, you've always had experiences that kind of were different to those around you. And so did you feel there's pressure to experience life? They said, we was talking about self a minute ago, but do you feel like because you could see you were experiencing life differently, there was pressure to conform in any kind of way and try and find a way to be like other people?
I think I used to look at it as like, not pressure to conform, but like, what's different? Why am I being treated so differently? Like, what's wrong with me that people treat me differently? I guess I used to think about it in terms of like my little brother, because like we have like a 3-year age gap. And then whenever we'd go somewhere, people would be just like all over my brother and just like, oh, he's so cute. And then I'm just over there like, I'm here too. Like, it's only a 3-year age gap difference. Like, he's 4, I'm 7. And like, I don't understand why I'm being treated so differently, because we're both kids at it. And we're both at this like we're both at that age, or at those ages where you treat kids like, look at him. But for me, it was always different, and I could never understand it. So I'm like, well, the problem, because it's happening so consistently, I'm like, well, the only common factor is me, so the problem must be me. So I don't know what's the problem with me. What's making me different that everyone reacts so differently to me?
So that's something you internalized from a young age then?
Yeah.
And so I guess, did you think that affected how you related with people? Because if you're talking that was from started at the age of 7, then how you related with people through school, through college, through adulthood, do you feel like that was ingrained?
Yeah, because like, whatever it means, like, I was a sensitive child, so I was like picking up on things. And even as a kid, I was just like doing different things. Like, they're all doing this, I'm not doing that. I was like, I don't really want to do that. But so, and I guess, so I was always seeing the pattern everywhere, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And yeah, what was the question?
Do you feel the fact that when you were young and you were already, people were already perceiving you as different, do you feel that
That's the thing. I'm not sure if they were perceiving me as different. I was noticing the different behaviors. So the way they engaged with me as a child versus how they engaged with other children, I'm like, you're treating them differently to me. Like, why? What's happening?
Yeah, so then in your adult relationships, you feel like there's always that in the back of your head?
In my adult relationships, as an adult, I'm just like, sometimes, like, when people do things that don't make sense to me, I'm like, just doesn't make sense. I don't understand. But at this point, and I guess that's another thing, like, I'd tell a younger me, like, it's them, it's not you. Because I spent so many years trying to figure out what's wrong with me until I finally sat there and I was like, wait, hold on. It's not me, it's them. So, and once I realized that, then I was just like, I spent like years and years, like decades, just trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And it's not me, it is literally other people. And I can't, and again, because you're told people are supposed to behave in a certain way, people are supposed to be things, this is what's normal, that's what's not normal, it's like, you can lose yourself in trying to figure out like what's wrong with you or that kind of thing. And again, when you realize, and I guess that's another thing, like when you realize that everyone's like normal doesn't really exist. So when you operate from a framework of normal, like it's very, again, it can be very mentally draining and mentally confusing and mentally it's just a mental load that's unnecessary until you realize that like there can't be such a thing as normal because everyone has their own individual perceptions and ideas and beliefs, and the way all these things resolve in people, it does it individually. So there's no like common meaning or common connotations or retete. So from that point, there's no way to have an actual normal because it can't exist.
So I'm going to scoot back to the basketball thing real quick. So obviously, you've talked about it being a solid part of your identity. Do you feel like actually, at what point did you feel like, okay, this dream is done? Like, how old were you when you were like, this dream is done?
Probably like 16.
For real?
Yeah. So, because like I said, like I had chronic injuries. I was getting like knee tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis. I found out I had one leg longer than the other. I think it eventually grew out, but but I was just getting so many injuries, and for so many years that I didn't feel like it was something viable. Because even if I could find a path, like you can't, like being constantly injured doesn't make it seem pursuable, or maybe that was just the perception I had at that point. But
so, do you feel like you mourned the dream? Like, I always find it interesting when, because there's certain things. What if let's say you dream to be a writer, for example, you could write your first book at 60, right? Or there's no kind of timeline to certain things that people are passionate about. When it's sport, it's time sensitive because your body, it wears, right? So with a dream like that, like, do you feel like, because I guess in the back of your mind, if you want to write or do music, in the back of your mind, it's always like, one day I can do this. I mean, Susan Boyle was in her 40s when she kind of came on the scene. So in the back of their head, or in a lot of people say, it's like, one day I can do this. But with ball or sport, it's like, once it's gone, it's gone. So do you feel like you mourned it? Do you feel like it was like it died within you?
Okay, let me think. All right, so it wasn't just 16. Like, I probably gave up on it like multiple times after that. And morning. All right, because when you asked me that, I actually thought about something else. Like from somehow from a young age, I got it into my head that I was meant to have like seen success by 16. I don't know what that means or what I was supposed to have done by age 16, but it's like I got 16, I was like, I haven't done anything. And it's like, like I had no frame of reference again for like the amount of time that success can take to make, the amount of time you have to become successful. It's like as I got older, I eventually saw that like, a lot of millionaires, they reach that point at like age 40 rather than at a young age. But I guess socially and societally, you see a lot of like really young people achieving things, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at him, it's amazing." But you kind of don't see people who achieve things later on, kind of thing. So there's bare people who've just like quietly had these successes, and you don't hear about them. Like nobody knows, but they're quietly doing things. And because you're only seeing like the brightest flames, it kind of can give this, like, I know I personally gained a misperception of like what should have been achieved and when. So even if it hadn't been ball, like, so like even outside of that, I kind of felt a way about not having achieved something by that age. And then in regards to ball, I think it's a weird relationship, because I'd lose it and then I'd find it again, and then I'd lose it and I'd find it again. And in there was some kind of, I guess there would have been mourning or loss, or, I think it's more coming to acceptance about certain things, and some of those things being my role in my inability to achieve with regards to ball or whatever, and then like not being able to get there in itself. But I think I had, because there's a bunch of other stuff, like I never practiced either. Like, I don't know what I was planning to achieve without really practicing. But again, like, I was always getting by on talent, and I was always at a sufficient level of talent that like I got away without practicing. And so there's always that, like, well, what if I did put in more intentional practice, and where like how good would I have been? And yeah, there was a point where like I went to a basketball camp, and it was for an academy where like it's basically where they're basically like, it's like a football academy or something, where like it's roots to pro ball. And the feedback I got, I guess both from the coaches and from my own performance, was like, in different circumstances this would have been achievable. And I guess the other thing I always thought was like, if I grew up in America as well, like this path would have been just a different thing, man. But or a different European country, man. Like, trying to play ball from England is just like, but like I had enough kind of things where I kind of realized, like, what, with different circumstances, like this would have been viable, and that was enough for me to be satisfied. And I guess I've had that with different things as well, like with music as well. Like, I've had stuff on the radio, and I've had stuff played on TV in Korea and Germany, and I'm kind of like, I don't think like a million plays on the radio or anything of that sort would give me a different internal feeling. Like, I won't feel more satisfied with like more plays. It's like numbers which are infinite, and like if you relate to them in that way, then I guess you can generate satisfaction from it. But just having that experience of like, look, I was able to do this, I was able to get stuff played on like BBC One Extra or whatever. It's like, all right, cool. That's enough satisfaction to know for the pursuit, I guess. So like from those things, like I can die tomorrow. I could died a month ago, and it's like, I'm not going to have any regrets that I haven't pursued music or achieved in music more than I have currently, if that makes sense. And I guess that those kinds of things kind of helped with acceptance of things that have happened. And so having that realization with ball that like, different circumstances, like this could have gone somewhere else, it kind of, I don't know if it was a mourning or it was a need to find a resolution or resolve, but that resolved whatever was lingering, kind of thing.
So, since your days as the next Kobe,
It wouldn't have been Kobe.
Man, real quick on Kobe.
Really?
Just because you know why? Because I was just like, I just pictured you and it's like Kobe. So like,
you know what? I lost all my Kobe jerseys. Like, I had a white Kobe jersey, and I don't know what happened to it. And then my little brother got my other Kobe jersey. So.
Yeah, but you were talking about practice, and that is the one thing he did potentially harder than anyone.
Okay, if we're talking about that, like, I saw, what was it? I think Gilbert. You know, have you heard of Gilbert Arenas?
No.
Anyway, as a basketball player, and he was talking about Mamba mentality. And he was like, "You people don't understand it, man, because you think that Kobe, like, not passing at the end of the game was him not being fair in it, but he's practiced that shot 1,000 to 3,000 times a day. You've practiced it 100 to 300 times a day. So to him, like, you taking the shot isn't fair. Like, you haven't put in the work to take the shot versus what he's put in. So, like, for him, a bad shot from him is better than a good shot from you. And that's what he explained he meant by Mamba mentality, talking about practice. But, yeah.
So, going back to that there's a kind of a curse with talent, or quote unquote natural talent or natural intelligence. Is that the curse is kind of like a lot of people feel like they can just not feel like the coast, but it's like when you're getting by at a young age on just talent, you think like life is always going to be like this way. Like for me, it was more of an intelligence thing. Like in school, just got by like without even trying, and then you think that life is always going to be. Yeah, you don't need to try. It's just there. So do you feel like, in a way, talent is a curse, and that you kind of, if you don't have the right mentors or people to really push you, then you fall into that trap?
It's not a curse. It's a blessing. Like, I've got by on a lot of talent. But I don't know. It's always going to come back to perception, because it's going to come back to how you perceive it. Because I think there's some people who they have the talent, and then they have this like obsession with, or this perception or this understanding of working hard. And then, like, when those two things meet, you get these like, you can get these people who shine like so brightly, and like they perceive it as like, it's hard work, and it's like, you know what, you might not have needed to work that hard because like you had the talent to go along with it. But on the other side, you can also, it's experience as well, because I don't know how certain people get to that point where they have that understanding of like, you know what, my talent is enough, I need to work hard. Because like the experiences I had was always like, I'm keeping up, I'm doing well, like I'm doing shit other people can't do. Like now I need to throw practice on top of that. I was like, I'm getting, you know, I get that with playing keys. Like I struggle to practice playing keys, but then I always seem to have improvements like when I'm doing things. And so I guess there's another way of framing it where my practice was always just doing it. So like when I'm making music, like I'll spend hours just like trying to figure things out and playing things and and then in a sense that is a kind of practice, and I get improvement from that. And then and then I always had this other problem with like when I practice like consistently, I never really saw improvement. But when I stopped and then I came back to something, I was always better. So it's just like,
I think that could be kind of a psychological phenomenon in that, like, because I've experienced similar things, but it's I think your brain is always processing. So sometimes when you take that space back, your brain has the space to kind of fill in the gaps that you were trying to fill in. Which is like the biggest CEOs, for example, what they're good at is stepping away. So if they're working on a particular project, they'll step away for a day or two and then come back with a fresh perspective and having had that space to process and then kind of execute based on that. So I think that could just be a facet of that, perhaps. But yeah, so talking about talent as well, though, I think it could be a case made for when you're growing up, being the second best. So having talent but not being as talented as your peers, that might be actually more advantageous. For example, Jordan, he, what was his high school? I don't know. I know you probably know his high school story better than I do.
I was like,
but yeah, he wasn't the man in high school, but that pushed him to then get better and improve. I don't know if he got rejected by something or...
I think it was something like junior varsity or something.
Yeah, so there was...
like, because by the time he got to college, it was already...
Yeah, so I think it was like a high school thing or whatever it was. But that friction led him to push himself to become the best. Or I remember Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo. He was talking about the kids that made it. No. He was talking about he wasn't the best in his neighborhood at all. Like, there was kids way better than him, but that made him work harder. And so in working harder and trying to get better, he's the one that became Ronaldo, you know? So maybe it could be this weird thing where, I don't know, you say it's not a curse, but there's a slight curse. And if you have talent, but you don't have people around you or things around you to cause friction that you need to push through, then I think in that sense there'll be that curse. So I think, I don't know about where you grew up, but I think I find that a lot where, because I'm from the ends, we find that a lot in that, for example, man, I always remember this story. It breaks my heart every time I remember it. I had this kid in primary school. He, man, he was bigger than everyone, stronger than everyone at the age of 11 already. Maybe 5'5" at the age of 11. It's just bigger than everyone, stronger than everyone. And then he was very technically gifted at football. And he got scouted for Blues at the time. But he didn't go for it. And I think a lot of that was kind of to do with not wanting to look like grown up in a certain area and not wanting to look like, oh, what are you doing kind of thing. Because this was before, like, I think now any kid would jump on that if opportunity. But it's just these things when you don't have someone, but if you had someone there to push him, then I think he could have had a different life right now.
But that's the thing. So, like, that just reminds me, I played so many sports and it was the same thing in, like, all the sports. It's just like, it was weird because I think this is another thing about basketball where, like, I don't actually understand the game. And it was something I've heard LeBron say, where it's like, yo, there's all-stars who don't know how to play the game. And that's something that fascinates me, that you can reach the highest level of competition and not have an understanding of how to play the sport, like, properly, or like when I watch it and people are talking tactics, and I guess, yeah, that would be my example. Like, so when I hate commentators, not commentators, I hate commentary, because they'll be like, yeah, he wanted to go left instead of right. And I'm like, how do you know? Because, like, if that was me, I'd just go with whichever way I can see to go. And I'm not going to be planning to, like, trying to attack a guy because he's weak. And I don't think about those things. It's just pure instinct, isn't it? But what did you say? Because I feel like I've gone really off.
we're just talking about childhood talent and how not having that friction.
Okay, yeah. That push, because because when I look at it, like my parents would, and this is the thing, because I guess that's why I kind of see it as why it depends on how things resolve and perception and that kind of thing. Because my parents are always like, "Yo, you need to work really hard. We're not from this country," and I'd just be like, "I'm doing it," and it's like I'm doing it without working as hard as you need to tell me. Like they used to take me to keyboard lessons, and I was supposed to be learning how to read music and practicing in that way. Like I'd hear like my piano tutor would like play the song, and like I'd memorize like in my head the melody. Then I'd just play it from ear instead of reading the music and playing it from sight. And so I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm playing it, but I'm not doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing given like the tuition I'm receiving. But then I'm being told that like to be able to play this, you need to do da 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 da, and I'm like, I'm playing it, so it's not registering to me that there's actually value in doing this because I'm getting it done. So, and that, I guess that kind of happened in a lot of different areas where it's like, yo, you need to work and practice. And I'm like, it's being done. But I had people pushing me to work harder on things. But if my experience doesn't engage, doesn't intersect with what you're telling me needs to happen, like it's going to be hard for it to make sense to me, especially as a child. Like you're telling me to practice, I'm already playing it. Like I just needed to hear it and play it. And from there, like everything I'm doing is by ear. And I guess when I got older, like some stuff was a lot harder, like more technical kinds of styles of music and but even those, after enough time, it's just like, I can hear it now and I can do it. It's just like, it's like some of your chords, when you were first playing them, like, what's going on? And then eventually, once like, I guess that was another thing, because like even when I'm not doing it, I still had like enough technical knowledge to be able to pick things up. So that eventually, once I understood what you were doing and I could hear it and I could hear the movements, then it's like, all right, I've got it now. So I've stopped practicing, or I've stopped trying to figure it out because I've figured it out and I can apply it. So I don't know, no, I wouldn't call it a curse. It's just how things end up being engaged with and resolved, and perception within the individual, because there's some people with all the talent and they think, it's because I worked hard. And it's like, you know what, you probably have got there without working as hard, like without being as maniacal.
But I guess it's levels, because and it depends on what you want to achieve and what getting there is, because to be a Kobe, that's stepping above the best around you. That you can be as good as everyone around you, or you can be better. So I think that work is gonna give you that extra 5 to 10% that those around you will be missing.
Yeah, but at the same time, we need to see a Kobe who didn't work as hard, and then see what that looks like.
I think we've probably seen a couple of them. I'm trying to think of an example. You probably think of better examples than me, but there's been a couple that's the next Kobe that just didn't pan out, or the next Jordan that didn't pan out.
Yeah, but that's because they got given a label, like unnecessary. Like that's not a label you should have received. Like you weren't going to be that. But yeah, I don't know, because that's always how I look at things. Like it would be very fascinating to be able to like have two parallel universes, and where you can see like where the life choices, how it ends up from the diverging life choices. And that's where it will make more sense, because we ascribe a lot of things to success, but like there's a lot of luck in there as well. Like, and once you're dealing with luck, as well. You don't know what's going to happen anyway.
You create your own luck, though. Yeah, luck plays a part in success, but I think there's that phrase where preparation meets opportunity. I think that's where luck is. But anyway, we'll move on from that for now. With your face all like screwed up.
Yeah, because all like.
I'm trying to think where to take this conversation next. I guess it was since we're on the topic of sport, let's talk about topic of diet, which is a crazy one in and of itself.
Okay.
'Cause I guess in a way that they go hand in hand, athleticism and food. So I think for a long time you weren't eating meat, but you were eating chicken and fish. And then you made some dietary changes. So the beginning of your dietary journey, I guess.
You want the beginning?
Let's say 2009.
Bro, I don't remember years like that.
I don't know.
You know what? Like, I can start at the beginning, like, which is in my teenage years, because I had really bad acne, I guess. Sometimes it'd be like boils, man. So from a young age, I stopped eating like chocolate and sweet. So that was like my first step. This little 14-year-old is like, I don't eat sweets anymore. And then I guess age 18, a friend of mine was like, yeah, I'm lactose intolerant. So I was like, okay, let me give that a go. So I cut out milk. And then what I discovered was that like I'd been lactose intolerant my whole life. So like all these stomach pains and bubbling and all this stuff that was happening in my belly was just like years of lactose intolerant. But I thought that was normal. So it wasn't until I removed it that I realized like, oh, I could have been pain-free all these years. And then I guess after that probably came like red meat or something, which I heard was like, oh, it's bad for your health, saturated fats, cholesterol, cancer. And I was like, well, might as well get ahead of the game and cut it out. Something that came out real early was pork. I've just remembered, I can't eat pork. Pork used to actually make me feel ill. So that went real early. So then, yeah, that's after cutting out red meat, that's when I was eating just like pescatarian, basically, chicken, fish. But even that was done so badly because it was just like tuna in cans and all these like poor commercial meats. But like as I was cutting stuff out, like I'm feeling better, and so I don't remember when that was exactly, but I think by 2012 maybe I decided to go like vegan and just cut out all the animal products. Actually, another thing within that was like I used to struggle to eat fats as well. So it's fried foods, like fried eggs, or just like I just feel like, how would I describe it? Like I'd get tightness in my chest, and I was always just associated it with fat. And so like when I went vegan, I basically went like low fat vegan, and yeah, and then from there I was just cycling through all the different forms of veganism or vegan style diets, should I say? So
wait, you said when you went vegan, was there a reason you went vegan?
I was always pursuing health, and so, and this is something that I did a lot in my childhood. So like, if you have all these people, this is why like, you know, I think I'm gonna end up referring back to your question of what I'd tell my 18-year-old self, because I'd probably tell it to my 10-year-old self and he'd have just used that knowledge much better. But like, so when you're growing up, you see all these older people who are like, so like dating people like, yeah, it's fun to date lots of people, but eventually you're going to want to settle down and have family because that's what's really fulfilling. And so in my head, I'm like, why would I not listen to this? If this is the destination, why would I just not head straight there? Like, why do I need to run around all these ways when I know where I'm going to end up? Because like, it's consistently being said that this is the most self-fulfilling thing you can do in life. And I had a similar approach with diet. Like, if you're saying that like a plant-based diet is the healthiest, and you know what, as you break down, you're gonna end up switching to a plant-based diet and I'm like, well, I might as well get a jump on it and head straight there. Why do I like, if I can go straight to the end, why do I need to run through all these winding paths unnecessarily? So yeah, it was always just pursuing better health. And I think I can look back now as well and say like, because like with the basketball thing I mentioned, like I had a lot of injuries for years, and I had a lot of how should I put it? I never know how to put it. I think I had like a lot of mental confusion as well. So like I was always trying to like either consciously or subconsciously just like push towards a healthier lifestyle and sort out all these issues that even if I wasn't aware of them consciously, I'd be trying to resolve them subconsciously. So like when I first went vegan, I was probably just eating loads of not the best foods basically, which was always weird because like people would be like, "Oh, you're so healthy," and I'd be looking at what I'm eating like, nah, not really. Like this can be better.
You know, like a lot of vegans I've seen, and I've done it as well. During my brief vegan stint, I think with veganism you need to really, really plan out what you're eating. So people make the jump, and then it's like you just binging on carbs, and so there's a lot of kind of food. I mean, chips are still vegan, right? And there's I know I've seen a few podcasts where people are like, yeah, I'm vegan, but I'm just eating chips. Like, and even was it RZA? No. It was someone on RZA's podcast or something. He was saying, yeah, just eat chips, but it's like it's not sustainable. Because I think you're trying to look for something substantive, and then you end up eating junk.
Yeah, I think I was probably like to begin with. That's the thing. I was probably eating like pasta and rice and potatoes, but as things like it was again looking back, I can see the cycle a lot more clearly, but within it, I was aware of what was happening, but it still didn't kind of lead to a realization that I only had like a year ago. But like I'd switch, I'd make a switch and things would improve and then I'd start declining. And like whether cognitively or physically or
Make
whatever.
a switch being
like, so I'd go vegan and however I was doing it.
Okay.
It's like, I know I'm not doing the best version of veganism or whatever, of a plant-based diet or whatever. And so, but I've had improvements, so I keep going. And then like things would start, like I'd start not feeling well, like cognitively or physically or whatever. And then I'd be like, well, I need to up the level in it. So I'd like take stuff out. So I took gluten out, for instance, and now I'm eating gluten-free. All my pastas are now like, what is it, legume-based. So I'm eating like lentil pasta or maybe, what was the other one? Buckwheat. And so I'd be doing that for a while and then I'd start to decline and it'd be like, all right, so what can I improve now? Because like something's not right, I need to improve. So I'm taking more and more stuff out. And so by the time I got to the end of it, like there's nothing left to take out. Like there was nowhere else to go. But I wasn't noticing the pattern of like, I'm doing this healthy thing, but for some reason my health keeps getting worse. And it wasn't until like I guess I'll just say it wasn't until like I did a 21-day fast and I couldn't recover, and I was basically fruitarian. So like this is supposedly like peak veganism. And so I'm like, and when I'd see doctors about it, they'd be like, you're not getting enough calories. But I'm like, I'm eating like 2 kilograms of fruit a day. Like I'm getting enough calories. I'm just not recovering. There wasn't any nutrition. There wasn't, like, my body wasn't using anything that was in there, and it was falling apart. Like by the end of it, I got pretty close to death. But
so before we get into that, so Fruitarian was kind of the last version of veganism you were doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the beginning where it was kind of like the standard. You removed meat, you removed chicken or whatever, fish or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a standard vegan, maybe the first step of most vegans. So then what were the different, you said you were removing things. What were the different categories of veganisms you're trying?
I can't even remember, man. There's always something ready to be removed, man. Like, so I know gluten was one. Like, I went gluten free, and when I did that, I felt a lot better. What else did I take out? I can't even remember, man.
So is it
Just
like
so many variations?
So for most of your vegan life, were you high carb, low fat?
Yeah.
For the whole, more or less the whole time?
Not more or less the whole time. There was a point where I recognized that I needed more fat. Like I can't carry on without fat. But at that point, I started, because I guess that's another thing. So like, because I was low fat for a long time, I didn't eat nuts. And what else wasn't I eating? Didn't touch coconut oil. Didn't touch any kinds of oils. Like, I'd fry food with water. Because
that's
like,
a new one. That's a new one.
It can be done, but like because, again, like I was saying, like I'd eat fats and I'd get like tightness in my chest, and I'm like, I can't keep eating this if I'm getting this reaction. So like plant fats were just no good. I guess another thing is I was removing processed foods as much as I could throughout the I guess even before a little bit. So I was trying to move towards whole foods at some point. I guess there'd be times where so like when I was trying to move towards more whole foods, then I'd drop like pastas and stuff, and I'd be trying to. There's times where I was like eating whole grain rice, and then I'd read about like the phytates in the husk, and then now I'm back to white rice, and it's just like the nutritional information is just so conflicting and so confusing. And like I was always trying to find something optimal that left me feeling well and was trying to give me as much as I could. And I was always trying to eat vegetables, and then I'd be eating frozen vegetables, and then it's like these don't really feel like they've got anything in them, so I'm trying to eat fresh vegetables as much as I could. And then yeah, it's just always stuff like that. And then I'm trying to go organic because, again, I'm trying to improve. And then I'm learning about commercial farm practices and how they deplete like the nutrition in the food. And so it's, yeah, that's as best as I can answer, because I don't really remember specifically what I was doing, because, I do a lot of things, and once I've shifted, I don't
so I think
keep track.
With my brief experience of the YouTube world and veganism in the YouTube world, I think that seems to be the quest with a lot of vegans, is kind of trying to find once you're on this path, how can I further optimize health?
But I think a lot of people, not all of them, but like there's a good deal of people who end up on this path pursuing health and trying to sort issues out. And like because if you're doing it because for the animals, then like you're fine eating like all this junk, like an Impossible Burger makes sense in that scenario. But if you're doing it trying to sort out your health and pursue health, like this processed, chemically made muck, it doesn't make sense to you. And those lead to different outcomes and different choices. Like, I think the way I did it, I kind of suspect, like, if I'd been eating more junk, I might have been healthier. If I cheated more, like, I might have been healthier. But, like, I was so kind of like, all right, this is what I'm doing. Stick to it until, like, I decide to do something else. And it's just like...
So you were so healthy, in quotations, that it was bad for you. So is it that you weren't getting... Because I guess when I hear the term fruitarian, I'm like, there's such a wide array of... within the range of my minimal understanding of nutrition, there's a wide range of vitamins, minerals, etc. that we need. And eating fruit, I mean, is it possible to get everything that you need?
All right, so I don't know. I think eating fruit here, you can't. Like, I don't think it can be done.
Because everything's imported and then it's not even ripe when it's picked.
So like you've got poor farm practices, like the land's depleted. It's like I'll see people like debate B12, and the thing I've not heard one person say is whether there's cobalt in the soil and whether the bacteria is there to like make it available to the plants and to like to make it available to the plants so that the animals that you're supposedly getting B12 from, like, it's present in the grass they're eating, say if it's a ruminant. So like we're debating all these possible ways of getting B12, but no one's like, is there cobalt in the soil? Probably not. Like, we've depleted all the nutrients and the only nutrients we put back in is NPK, and like this is the bare minimum to...
NPK is what?
Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, I think.
Okay.
And this is like the bare minimum to get a plant to grow. But if that's all that's there, there's so many other minerals that are needed for like for the nutrition to be present in the plant that it's like, it's just you eat an empty food. Like there's nothing there.
You might as well be eating chips.
Yeah. And I think like at my worst point, I got so bad that I could taste there was no nutrition in whatever I was eating. But yeah, anyway. So to answer what you're saying, like it may be a different scenario. Like if you're in a country where you can pick the fruit ripe from the tree and it's allowed to ripen properly, like there may be the nutrition may be available in that scenario. But if you're picking stuff before it's ripe, like if you're picking like there's bare fruits, if you're picking them before it's ripe, it's gonna be like functionally toxic. It's like you shouldn't be eating that. Like it's not ready to be eaten yet. So I haven't got to the point where I think it necessarily, like there was a point where I was like, nope, can't be done. But I haven't got to the point where I think, but I've kind of walked that back and I'm thinking like, you know what, like in these scenarios, I don't think you can get the nutrition from it. Even with the organic stuff, it's probably like difficult to get the nutrition from it. Like when you're picking stuff so early, when you're having to make decisions and choices for commercial interests rather than health interests, because we're not growing food for health. If we're growing food for health, we'd be doing things differently. We'd be like locally sourced or growing in your back garden or all that stuff. If you're growing food for the supermarket shelf, like health is like the last thing, even if you're printing health on the marketing, like on the package. It's like, if we're caring about health, we'd be doing different things. But yeah.
So with all this food potentially, fruit or veg potentially being depleted of nutrition.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember a couple of years ago, I was at some event and they were saying the same thing. They were trying to sell things.
What supplements?
Something like that. I can't remember. It was like one of those kiosks that's part of a bigger event.
Oh, okay.
But I can't remember. But they were just saying the same thing. I was overheard him chatting to whoever, and it was like, yeah, like 5 a day. Your 5 a day is now really it should be 7 a day because everything's just it's lacking in the nutrition you need. But anyway, so what do you make then of kind of having been fruitarian yourself? What do you make of like the YouTubers and people that are really preaching fruit is the way? And
like I have a real interest in like the people who say it's sustainable and they're like, yeah, I'm thriving. I'm like, how are you doing it? I want to know, because like that didn't work for me. It wasn't compatible, or something else was like, it didn't work. And then on the other side of that, there's plenty of those YouTubers who like they get caught sneaking meat in and sneaking fish in. And I'm like, that's just peak. Because you'll get people like me who like, if I'm eating this way, I'm not straying from it. And like I'm not straying from it until like I break down and rate. But you have these people who were doing it. They've got like hundreds of thousands of followers. Like I guess their income is predicated upon preaching fruit is the way, and their health has got they from what I heard, they had similar health issues to what I ended up having. And so they've had to start eating meat and like they're sneaking fish and this, that, and then they get caught. And now it's a whole YouTube video where they're in tears and they're breaking down about their health. But it's like, you should have said this from then, innit? Because this is information for people to know and information people might need to know. Because I guess one of the places I'm at is that there's a book I want to buy about bio individuality, which I haven't read yet. But even just the concept of that, where like, you know what, this way of eating is compatible with certain people, and this other way of eating is compatible with other people. And if they're trying to do something they're not compatible with, they'll run into problems. While someone else is like, yo, I'm fine. Yo, this is best shape I've ever been in, best way. It's like, cool. But we kind of end up kind of championing one way of eating or one set of beliefs that other people just fall apart on, and it's just not compatible with them or their bodies or their genetics or whatever. So I think it's important for people to know that, you know what, you need to figure out what's compatible with you and your body and listen to your body rather than what all these people are telling you, because like that's just data and information and stuff to try. But if your body's like, yo, this ain't working, like
But I think we lose that ability to listen to our bodies or listen to any part of ourselves as we grow.
Well, isn't that like part of what your parents do to you?
Potentially. That's a topic for maybe a few minutes later. But where I was going with it is, I think it's a channel called What I Learned.
Oh yeah, What I've Learned.
Yeah, so he's a really cool channel. He does a lot of research. But he was doing some research on sodium for maybe a keto video or something like that. And there's this kid in hospital. No. There's start from the beginning. There's a baby. So from a very young age, he just kept craving salt. With everything he was having, salt. And his parents just gave in and just gave him the salt. Then when he was like 3 years old, he went into hospital for something. And because the hospital had such a low sodium diet, he died within 7 days. So it turns out he was just listening to his body. His body needed a sodium. It turns out he had this rare condition. I can't remember what it's called or what it's about, but he needed that extra sodium to keep himself alive. So like listening to your body is so important. But I think as we grow, we have all these belief systems that are layered on top, and we kind of confuse what is our body talking and what is just our in a dialogue that's been conditioned over the past 10, 15, 20 years, or depending how old you are. So yeah, it's so important to listen to your body. And I think I have a friend who's gone vegan as well. And she started introducing other foods because her body, she can feel that her body and then needs it. And when she has these other foods, it's like, yeah, actually, yeah, my body needs it.
Yeah.
But I think what I see happening is people fall onto this idea of I need to eat in this particular way, but because they're so convinced of this idea, like I always say this, your brain needs to maintain equilibrium. So once you've convinced yourself of an idea, any data points that are contrary, you're going to ignore, because for you to acknowledge them, that's going to cause dissonance. Your brain just doesn't want that. And so, yeah, people ignore these data points for longer than they should, perhaps.
I think even dissonance, or like the avoidance of dissonance, is conditioned, which is maybe another conversation for another time. Because, like, but just to touch on it quickly, like, your brain doesn't know anything, so we're conditioned into a society of certainty, but like your brain is set up to navigate uncertainty. So we end up with this perception that we don't like uncertainty, but your organ in itself is built for uncertainty. It's not built to be certain. It's built for uncertainty. But that's another thing. Like, this is why I kind of like have an issue with people talking about intuition. Because a lot of people talk about intuition as though, like, yeah, listen to your body, like your body knows. Yeah, listen to your intuition, listen to your gut, it knows. But it just ignores normalization. So, and conditioning on top of that. So, like, once your body's normalized to something just off, and once you've added conditioning on top of that, your intuition is ruined. Like, if our intuition just functioned, like, we wouldn't be eating like this. We'd already know, like, yo, this is gonna cause diabetes, this is gonna cause heart disease. Like, you don't need scientists to tell you that. If we just knew, we'd be doing it. And even with animals, like, people often talk about animals just know, but once they start getting fed like other crap, they don't go like nah. Like, they'll just eat, and they'll eat themselves into sickness, because like now there's other options, and it's a bit, yeah, there's so many things that override intuition. And like, intuition in itself isn't even this objective thing, because like I'm saying, if it was, like, we just know what we need to do. And even then, listening to your body becomes such a difficult thing to do, because you're told that this means that and that means that. So you've been given an interpretation which may or may not apply to what your body is like telling you right now. And so there's all these little points at which, like, it just falls apart. And yeah, it just gets confusing. But
so I guess to conclude, veganism may not be for everyone, but I think there's also something you said years ago which always stuck with me, which is kind of a bit ironic because you then went down that path, but you'd come to this conclusion that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we're doing. It's just people engage with extremes, and that's when problems arise. And one of them being potentially fruitarianism. Is that the word you'd say?
Fruitarianism, like,
yeah.
I really don't remember saying that, man.
No, my memory's on lock. Or maybe your brain had to cut it out just to maintain equilibrium.
Nah, because you know what, I never particularly viewed what I was doing as extreme, though I've considered it like recently. But because to me, like being overweight is extreme, like being unhealthy is extreme, like doing something you know is damaging is extreme. Like if I'd reached the point where I'm like, you know what, I need to do something different, and I'd continued on doing something that like my body is like screaming at me that, yo, this isn't working, then like to me that's extreme. Like, but trying to be healthy and trying to live a long life, a quality, like a high quality life is not extreme. Like that's what I was pursuing. Like relative to other people, because other people I always like, oh, you need balance, but I don't understand what balance means, because what I need is nutrition, and I need a balance of nutrition. But we have this kind of idea that like, well, you can achieve balance by just eating all these random foods, but we're not understanding how those foods are interacting with each other and with our body. Like those interactions can create imbalance. So just saying, oh, just eat a bit of this, eat a bit of that, and then it's balanced. And then you throw in ssugar and sweets, and like, yeah, you have to be like thinking I'm being cruel because I'm not eating sugar or sweets, which will inevitably lead to worse health. Is like, I don't understand where the balance is in eating stuff which is just bad for my body. Like, because you're not saying, like, you're not implying balance as, yeah, you're not implying balance in that sense of like, okay, this is good for you because you think I'm, what's the word, man? What's that word when you're not allowing yourself to do something?
Discipline? I don't know.
No, not discipline. But that's another thing. People think discipline is like unbalanced. Like, I can't remember the word, but like people think I'm not being kind to myself because I'm not allowing myself to eat ice cream and treats. It's like, yo, that stuff makes me ill. Like, I don't feel good after eating that. Like, so how am I being unkind to myself by doing things which make me feel good? Like, I enjoy eating this way. I don't miss those things. So where am I missing out? Like, what am I missing out on things that I'm choosing not to eat? Because I'm not doing it I'm not doing it for any other reason than I've made a choice. And this was kind of like what I always used to say to people, in that like, I'm choosing to eat this way for my health. So if I ever reach a point where like I think I need to eat meat because that's the healthiest thing to do, then that's the choice I'm going to make. And I always believed that until I had to eat meat again. And I was like, maybe I was talking too much. But like, again, that was the choice I made when I reached that point, and I found my health improved after making that choice. So I was like, okay, this was what I said, and this is what I did. Like, I lived what I said.
So talking about extremes, so you've gone from Fruitarian to where are we now?
I guess it would be described as carnivore, but
so literally the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, just complete opposite. No plant. I fell out with plants. I was ready to burn them all, man. They betrayed me, man. So I was flying the flag, and then
I find that happens a lot. People advocate for vegan, but I think for some reason it seems to happen more in the people that advocate for veganism for health than it does for people just being vegan for animals, because I guess they're more likely to cheat. Possibly,
I think their dietary restrictions are different because, like, again, I'm not eating a lot of, and especially because I was trying to do low fat. Like, I wasn't eating a lot of oils and these kinds of things, and like I wasn't. It's just weird. I wasn't doing like big smoothies and that kind of thing. It's just like, I'm just trying to eat meals that I'd be able to eat it. But and again, like people who are doing it for health, a lot of them are trying to sort out problems. So if you don't realize like the consequences of heading down that direction may make the problems worse, you're gonna like go at it until you break down.
So you've got, before we talk about breaking down, you're at another extreme now, which is you've described as carnivore. So what is it you're consuming now then?
Just meat.
Just meat, like other animal products as well, eggs?
Try to eat eggs, though I was having bad reactions to them. I really need to eat fish, but I can't. I so badly need to eat fish, but I can't get it fresh enough, or I'll just have to risk the like reactions to it.
So what does fish have that you need?
I suspect I'm in need of like the omega-3s and vitamin E because they're like anti-inflammatory, and I suspect I'm dealing with inflammation at the moment. But and even just then, and calcium as well. Like as I'm doing more research, I'm just like, there's all this stuff that is missing, and the things I need to do to kind of make up for the stuff that's missing, I currently can't do in the condition I'm in, or in the state I'm in, should I say.
So calcium, where are you missing calcium?
It's just minimal amounts of calcium in like an only meat diet.
Okay. But I don't know.
It's like minimal.
Maybe I need to look at Michaela Peterson more. But she's made eating steaks work for quite some years.
Okay, like I think I'm dealing with a different issue. So I think I'm dealing with like nutritional depletion. Basically, I'm not sure that she would have been necessarily dealing with that, even though she would have had her own health issues. I'm not sure that she necessarily would have been dealing with that. So, like I don't know how it works for other people. I just kind of know the state that I suspect I'm in and the things that I suspect I'll need to help out in that state. Because I think it's a similar thing with veganism. Like by the time I was done, I came to view it as I was living on credit almost. So like I grew up eating meat and all this other stuff. So I would have had like nutritional reserves, which would have slowly been used up over the years that I was vegan, and then completely just depleted when I was doing the fasts I was doing. Like that's the best theory I've got for what happened to me at the time. And if I am dealing with nutritional depletion, then I'm going to need to find sources for all these things. So again, because I was low fat for years, like the omega-3s, like I think EPA and DHA, and there's another one which I can't remember the letters of. Like there's nowhere to get those on like a vegan diet, and even just like a normal diet, you'll likely end up lowering them because it's because the ratio, either lowering them or the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is off, stuff like that. But I'd have had years without that stuff. Like it's not like I was taking Carnivore or other supplements. And then they say that you're supposed to be able to, your body's supposed to be able to convert ALA into these other forms of omega-3s. But
ALA is what?
I think alpha linolenic acid. So that's the omega-3 that they're telling you is in like flax seeds and all these other stuff, which they're like, yeah, there's your omega-3s, but you need like the EPA and DHA. Apparently. But so, and where you get that from is going to be like animal-based sources generally, unless you're eating algae, but even then I'm not sure that's a good source of it. But what was the point I was trying to make? Yeah, because I haven't had that stuff for so long, like I'm just going to be low in it. and I'm going to need to like eat enough to get levels back up and to help my body sort out the issues that it has at the moment.
So I guess that's why she's able to do the vegan, not vegan, the carnivore in such a minimal kind of way where it's just meat.
Potentially, but like again, like we all have individual nutritional statuses, and like we're high in this, low in that, and genetics as well potentially comes into it. So again, it's kind of like being individual, because there's plenty of people who like they try a carnivore way of eating or a low carb way of eating or a keto way of eating, and it sorts out the issues that they're having. And then there's other people who it doesn't work for them, or it improves things but it doesn't resolve things. And again, like I think it's important to talk about those things so that people can kind of explore, like, is it another problem, or is it I'm not doing it correctly, or is it retete? But like when you're trying to look for this information, a lot of times you just get drawn into like ideological debates, and it's just like,
you need to eat vegan because of this, or what's his name? Seba? No.
What, Savage or something?
Dr.
Oh, Dr. Sebi.
And if that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Like, you know what? Like when I was close to making the switch, I was talking to people like, yo, I'm having these problems, like, oh, you need all these herbs, these vitamins. I'm not vitamins, you need all these herbs, sort yourself out. And I'm like, I've been vegan for 8 years. Like, by the time I was done, I was allergic to plants. And people are telling me like, yo, you need more vegetables. I'm like, are you listening to what I'm saying? Like, I'm literally having reactions to these foods you're saying I need to eat. Like, you're not hearing what I'm saying. You're just hitting me back with your beliefs. And it's like, I can't do anything with that, man. Like, I just have to go into the wilderness and try things. And I think it's the weird thing, because like, you have like all these different ideologies of like vegan, like carnivore, low carb, keto, and like instead of everyone looking at it and saying, all right, what are the commonalities that are working across the range, and what can we do to help people who like tried all these things and it's not working? Everyone's just waving their flag and fighting their corner. But like, even just on a consistent level, like, one thing that's consistent among all these ways of eating is like the reduction of processed foods, and like just eliminating processed foods can lead to just better health outcomes. And instead of everyone like, all right, we can agree on this and let's explore things, everyone's just fighting for no reason. It's just mad. But yeah.
So in terms of your meat diet now, how often are you eating?
Like, what would be referred to as OMAD, or once a day, one meal a day.
So you just punch everything in and pack everything into this one meal?
Yeah, it's not well, you know what? If you've ever seen me eat a meal, like the size of my portions. But yeah, like it's just one meal a day. I think when I find that like 3 meals a day is a con. Like, if you look into it, I think it was Kellogg's or something. Like, once they started making breakfast cereals, like breakfast suddenly became the most important meal of the day. And of course, it's just eating like this junk, which they've refined into what is known as food, what they try to call food, but they have to add all of these vitamins back in to make it passable. But there's just poor forms of vitamins anyway. So, but like I looked at I was looking into what are they called? An Amazonian tribe called the Piraha. And like basically they ate like once a day. They eat once a day when they're hungry, and then they don't need to eat again. And I was looking at it, and then when you discover that like 3 meals a day is a recent thing, I was kind of like, okay, so like it doesn't need to be 3 meals a day. And even worse than that, a lot of us are like eating 3 meals a day with snacks. and then we're wondering why, like, we're getting fat, or we're getting diabetes, or we're having poor health outcomes. We're just like eating way too much. But yeah, in terms of
is it the quantity or the frequency?
It's a whole host of problems. It's like frequency. Like, frequency doesn't allow your digestive system to like rest at all. The quantity, again, is like you're eating a lot of empty food. So it's high calorie but like low nutrition. And so you're getting like energy bursts and glucose spikes and insulin spikes, but there's no nutrition behind it. So you're still hungry afterwards. And then just poor quality food, like food that's not actually food. Like, if you read the back of a food packet, like, it's a chemistry experiment. Like, this is just bare chemicals, bare hidden sugar, like, what is it, like dextrose, malt, like all these different names for sugar, and it's just like on the same packet of food. So it's like, that's sugar, that's sugar, that's sugar, that's sugar, that's sugar, that's sugar. And then there's salt and fat. And even that's like if you want to make your food taste great, salt, sugar, fat, little acid, it's coming out great, man. Like, it's just like, it will be what's the word? Hyper palatable. Like, your tongue's not designed to have like fats and sugars essentially together, and that just tastes great to it. It's just an overload of taste sensation. And then when you look at everything we eat, it's just salt, fat, sugar. It's mad.
So OMAD is working for you, and you said like tribes used to eat in that fashion.
Yeah, and like you'll find people on keto diets where like they're eating low carb, and they're like they're eating to satiation, and they're not having to snack. Like, I eat my food and I'm done. I don't have to snack again. Like, I'm having it's working for me, but I got to a point where I started having problems again, and this is I suspect this is due to the other issues that I still have, which are unresolved. So like, I wasn't able to eat the quantity that I needed. So like, I need to eat about 1 kilogram a day, and
a kilo of meat is a lot of meat.
I was told this.
Well, I mean, for the general person, I just imagine a slab of meat on a plate.
Yeah. But again, like, I probably ate bigger portions when I was eating what was it, when I was like eating plant-based. But that's what I needed to get most of the nutritional quantities to the right level. So if you look up like the nutritional values in meat, so say something's like 7% in 100 grams, like if I eat 1 kilogram, then hopefully, like, in 1 kilogram, I'm like at 70%. So if something's 25%, then in 1 kilogram, I'm getting like 250% of the recommended allowance. So it's kind of necessary to eat that amount of meat in a day to make it viable. Trying to do it on anything less, it's not going to work. You're going to be hungry. You're just going to run into problems.
So, looking at the back end of your fruitarianism to kind of where we are now, do you think there's been an improvement in your overall health?
Almost definitely. Like, I was so prior to that, I was like highly irritable. I was having like low mood. Just my mood wasn't good at all. But like, so much stuff stabilized once I cut out the carbs and I was eating a higher fat diet. And then I found out that I actually do like animal fat, and I don't really react to it. So I suspect that a lot of what I was reacting to was like vegetable fats or plant or seed oils, and fried oils, and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's just so much improvement in all my health But again, it hasn't resolved things. So I've still got things that need resolving and need figuring out to resolve. But
so at the worst point of your fruitarianism, what was kind of the thing that happened for you to change?
All right, so basically I spent so like I ended up doing a 21-day water fast. Like my first fast was like what, I think 9 or 11 days, and then I did some little ones in between. But like I had poor health at the time, and I was like, all right, boom. I've read about fasting. I'm like confident enough this is going to help me, so I'm just going to do a 21-day fast. And I felt great by the end of the 21-day fast. So I knew that the things I was having problems with could be resolved, and I could feel great. And I didn't even feel like eating at the time, but I was like, you know what, I need to start eating. So I started eating, and what happened was like my health just declined, and I developed oral allergy syndrome. So it's like having hay fever reactions to fruit, and it's basically like the proteins in fruit are similar to like the proteins or whatever in hay fever. And so like it was making my mouth itchy, and my nose was runny, and all kinds of things. And then like I suspect I was having fructose malabsorption as well. So basically, if you like, the body's not really good at dealing with fructose, especially in high quantities. And I was eating fruits where fructose malabsorption shouldn't have been an issue, but because I'm eating like 2 kilograms of watermelon instead of like a slice here and there, like I was getting really high quantities of fructose, and that was giving me problems. And all the fiber wasn't like, was just blocking me up, so I was getting mad constipation. I was constipated for 3 months, and no one, like, I was going to the doctor like, I'm like, I need help, and the doctor's like, oh, don't know what to do. So like everything was just declining, like my muscles were weak. And I eventually realized that I had histamine intolerance as well, which I suspect I had for a long time. I've had for a long time. So something I suspect is that the reaction I'd get to fats was a histamine reaction, because like when you ingest fats, histamine is released as your body prepares to like digest and sort of deal with the fats. And just eating releases histamine. And so everything I was eating was just causing just a horrid reaction. And it's giving me mad anxiety. I was just in a poor state of health. My joints were hurting. It was just mad. And what happened? So I kind of didn't realize. Well, I kind of realized that I needed to change something. Like when I had an egg, and my body was like, "Boom, that's it." Like whatever you're trying to do over there, that's not working. You need to go in that direction. And yeah, so then like I was kind of like doing a lot of research, and then I was like, I'm gonna have to start eating meat. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and I was like, I don't have this figured out. So like I was like, all right, boom, I'll just eat 12 eggs. And so like I ate 12 eggs, and I had a really bad reaction, but I didn't realize that I was having a bad reaction as such. So again, because like some of them were boiled, some of them were fried in like coconut oil. So I thought, it's a reaction to the coconut oil. And so the next day I had 12 more eggs.
Why so many?
Because I needed to make a meal. Like I'm lacking in nutrition and this, that, and the other. Like, so basically this is 3 months after I'd finished fasting. And I'd essentially like, functionally, it was like I'd continued fasting. So like there was no nutrition. I'd lost weight. I was just like, I was in a horrible state of health. And so when I had 12 more, I was like, I had I think it was just 12 more boiled eggs though. So I still had the chest constriction, but it's just magnified. I had heart palpitations. My anxiety went through the roof. I was close to going into anaphylactic shock. And then I was like, okay, this is all like, I figured out this is all a histamine reaction. And these are all kind of eventually figured out these are all signs of histamine intolerance. And yeah, so so a lot of the reaction, I guess that's why I kind of like eased up my view on plants eventually, because I realized like a lot of what I was reacting to was, again, histamine stuff and being in a poor state of health rather than the plants itself necessarily. Yeah.
So
I feel like you asked me something and I just went into the next place.
No, that's fine. That soundbite vegan almost killed me.
Right, did. Veganism almost did kill me. And it wasn't until I shifted my diet that I realized how ill I'd been throughout the whole time and how much of a decline my health had been in, like cognitively and physically. So like I haven't played basketball in 3 years. And I stopped playing basketball because like in 2017, I was like, I've got a hip injury. It's not healing. All right, let me take a year off to make sure it heals. And then in 2018, I went back to play and I was like, oh, my hip's still not healed. Like, I don't know what, I'm just going to have to stop for a while. And then obviously I got ill and like, I haven't played since. So, but like that in itself, like a nagging injury, like 3 years not healing, like, all right, something's wrong here. You need to recognize that something's wrong here. I was trying to tell this to like my cousin, like, because I'm asking him like, how's your diet going? He's like, yo, I feel great. How's your injuries? Oh, I've still got this injury and that injury. I'm like, it's not adding up. Like, if this is so amazing for your health, our injuries shouldn't be lingering this long. Our bodies are designed to heal themselves. Like, something persisting so long is there's something not going right within the process. And on top of that, like when I mentioned cognitive stuff as well, like I had brain fog, like my mental like ability or capacity was declining and I hadn't even realized. Like there was a point where I had no access to my memories. There was just literally a black fog. And all I had was like maybe an emotional like connection to things. So like if something sparked an emotional connection, then I could maybe access the memory, but it was through this black fog in my head. And it was just like, eventually I realized, oh, I can't really remember anything. But it's okay. I'm cool. But again, it's another indicator of declining health. I suspect, I mentioned aphantasia to you before as well. The basically seeing images in your head. So like visual imagery in the mind. And it's something that I could do before, but I eventually lost the ability to do it. And it's like, I can't see pictures in my head anymore. But it's cool. I'm okay. But like, why did I lose that? Why am I not asking these questions? Because I'm just operating from the frame of what I'm doing is healthy. And if I'm not feeling good, then I just need to go harder. And it's just like, it took me a while to realize that like my health had been in decline. And on top of that, I think another thing that I never considered was the bioavailability of the nutrition in plants. So one thing like a lot of carnivore proponents will say is that like the nutrition in meat is more bioavailable, more accessible for the body, and that like plants have all these like anti-nutrients that kind of hold on to things and kind of they have enzyme inhibitors and all these things that can affect your ability to digest things, that both the plants and things eaten with the plants. And stuff like that was never brought up to me. Like when you'd hear people, they're just like, oh, I need meat. Oh, I don't think that's healthy. But like the suggestion that, you know what, you need to investigate the bioavailability of what you're doing. And it's the same with vitamins and supplements. And it's the same with meat as well. Like some people, like there's stuff in there that's not available to them. Like you need to make sure. It's all well and good thinking that these nutrients are in the food, but like we don't really have any way to check that they are. Like some scientists over here is telling you like, oh, this, that, and the other, isn't it? But I can't check it for myself, so it becomes difficult. But again, like understanding bioavailability and the possibility that like the nutrition I thought I was getting, I probably wasn't. So like vitamin A is a good example. I think it's always listed as like plant foods are great sources of vitamin A, but what they're actually sources of is beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. So basically, your body has to convert beta carotene into vitamin A. Whereas the form in meat is retinol, which the body can just make use of. But apparently, there's a lot of people who aren't good at converting beta carotene into vitamin A, and people like that are likely to have poor outcomes with a vegan diet, where your body needs to convert this into that, but it's not good at doing it. So you're not going to have enough vitamin A simply because you can't convert it, or you have a genetic disorder that makes it difficult to convert it. But yeah, and there's loads of things like that I guess I wasn't aware of, and I'm only learning about now as I'm like shifting and trying to figure out ways to improve my health further.
So talking about deficiencies, at some point you had a calcium deficiency, which was almost catastrophic. Probably could have led to your death, potentially.
Yeah.
So was that a result of your diet, or was there other factors at play?
That was a result of the calcium wasn't actually catastrophic. It was a result of a vitamin D deficiency, which that would have been catastrophic, because basically when they tested my vitamin D, the levels in my blood was undetectable. Yeah. So it it didn't matter because of the vitamin D issue. It didn't matter how much calcium was in my diet. Like my body wasn't I refer to my calcium deficiency as dysregulation, because it wasn't really a deficiency of calcium. It was my body's inability to regulate calcium due to vitamin D deficiency, which is kind of like exemplary of the way all these like different nutrients and vitamins and minerals are all like interacting and causing like cascading effects. So because my vitamin D was depleted, it depleted my calcium, which dysregulated my calcium, which led to like a whole bunch of other problems and issues, which we'll talk about at some point. But because the doctors focused on my calcium, it took them a long time to deal with my vitamin D. But my vitamin D needed sorting for my calcium to sort out. And once they sorted out my vitamin D, then my calcium sorted out, like without supplementation, without anything, just like so they told me, so they suspected that my diet had led that a poor diet or my vegan diet. This is another reason why it took me so long to like get off veganism, because the whole time they're looking at my calcium saying, oh, your vegan diet has led to a calcium deficiency. Now, as soon as they started supplementing vitamin D, then my calcium recovered and it was fine without supplementation, like from that point on. So when you're telling me that, the way you were eating is causing this problem, and like, well, it's not the way I'm eating, it's because I live in England and there's no sunshine. And that's the issue. When you're trying to convince me that my diet is a problem, like it's a bit difficult when you've got it wrong to begin with. Do you know what I mean? But
that's a story for another day, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, should I tease it? I'm going to tease it. So, well, I've already did.
Yeah.
He almost died. That's it. But yeah, we have ran a lot longer than anticipated. So we're going to wrap here, and we'll have to do a part 2 because there's a lot to explore regarding mental health,
Compassion.
and I was going to say compassion, and just
being attacked.
being the human you want others to be, let's say. So we have some stories for you coming up. But on this occasion, we'll have to just wrap there. But definitely stay tuned for part 2. Where can people find you on the socials?
Everything's at Innovance or /Innovance.
So
that YouTube, SoundCloud.
INNOVANCE.
INNOVANCE. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Insta, Twitter, all of that.
As always, follow b-u.co. All the socials are on there. All the latest podcasts are on there, etc., etc. So until the next one.
It's been fun, man.
My man's just